Councillors, we were meant to have a public forum this morning with regard to the welcoming community statement and commitment signing. In light of a number of councillors being on Zoom, I'm not sure if you are now live. Councillor, can you hear me all right? Thank you very much. So what we'll do is we'll put it out as a public statement and press release and arrange signings for that. If somebody would like me to read the speech notes that accompany it now, I'm quite prepared to do so. Otherwise, we'll just leave it for a press release. Thank you very much. In terms of a call for apologies, I have online Councillor Duncan, Councillor Dalgetty. I'm just wondering, I think Councillor Tracy Hiro is online or trying to get online? Is she in the waiting list? No. I have no further apologies.
Would you like to record the absences?
No, we don't think that is right. So I have no further apologies. So I'm presuming that a couple of councillors are late managing to get online, and we'll just receive them when they come on. I'll remind councillors of the conflict of interest declarations. Does anybody want to declare anything with regard to this meeting at this stage? No? Thank you. I'll move straight on. I'm looking for the confirmation of the order of business from staff. Is there anything you wish to bring forward or alter in terms of order of business or late items that you wish to bring to my attention?
Yes, there is one late item. It's been sent out this morning. It's to do with energy contracts. So you've also got a copy on your table. Those online, I did email it out before the meeting. So we'll accept that later as a late item.
Yes, I have had a look at this. I've had a discussion with Ms Gordon around this. I'm prepared to accept it as a late item under urgency, bearing in mind that it is beyond the Chief Executive's delegations in terms of money, and that we need to make a decision on this. And I gather the advice was not given to us ahead of the setting of the council agenda. So as such, I'll accept it as a late item under urgency, which means that we can make a decision with regard to this item. Any questions around that? No, thank you. I'll move straight on to confirmation of minutes, starting on page 5, looking for alterations and corrections. And in the hard copy I'm referring to, it stated pages 1 and 2. Councillor Duncan, you're on mute.
Yes, page 6, which is the attendance. It says I was there via Zoom, and I believe that's incorrect. I have notified staff about that, and I believe other people were on Zoom, so that needs attention.
Thank you very much. 7 and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Any further alterations or corrections? Would somebody then like to move that we accept them as amended? Thank you, Councillor Parnapa moving. Thank you, Councillor Carter seconding. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving to item 7, this is the follow-up actions from previous meetings. Mrs Gordon, are you taking us through this?
I can do. I'm happy to take any questions or comments about any of the items listed there. There's a number of us here who can answer them if need be.
Councillor Wilson.
One quick one for me, just noting item 1 with regards to the land adjacent to the sale yards. It says offered back to the owner. The status is closed. Has it been accepted?
Do we have an answer?
I don't think it's been accepted yet. There's still some negotiation between us and the potential buyer.
So if it hasn't been accepted, is it appropriate to close it?
No, it's just the status says close. I was just wondering if if it's not yet completed, it probably should remain open until it is completed in its formality.
That would be my feeling. Can we just take that as an action required?
Your Worship, we have Jess online. Could I ask her, please?
Jess, are you able to give us any further advice with regard to this?
Can you tell me which item it is, please? I'm looking through and not sure what one we're talking about.
As per Resolution 21 RDC 469, that the surplus land in Taihape be offered to the owner of the adjacent sale yards. The status comment is the land has been offered back to the owner of the adjacent sale yards. The question from Councillor Wilson was, have they accepted it? And if the answer is no, then should the status be changed back to still in progress?
That's correct. The land has been offered and the owner is still considering the offer. So it has not been accepted yet.
So you'd be happy with a change of status back to in progress? Because
yes.
if they don't accept it, we have to do something else with it.
Correct.
Any comment from the Chief Executive?
I agree with changing that back to in progress, and thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any further matters that you wish to bring, councillors wish to bring to our attention?
Councillor Dalgety.
Yeah, Councillor Lambert and Councillor Dalgety and Councillor Duncan. Councillor Lambert first. Councillor.
I just wondering about the ramp into the Huddle Town Hall. It's still work in progress, I assume.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair. That is correct. Quite a bit of work's been done there by the PMO team in January, and we'll probably have some firm costs around that fairly soon.
Councillor Dalgety, I'll go to you next. Thank you.
Morning, Your Worship. I'm just inquiring with regards to the previous minutes. There was reference to, on page 10, there was reference to some resources around the Resource Management Act that you thought we should be okay with. I was wondering if staff can please provide some links to those recommended resources.
Any comment from staff?
Sorry, Your Worship, I'm trying to find where on the page.
It's under the Chief Executive's report, page 10 of the hard copy.
So the Mayor encouraged elected members to be familiar with the Resource Management Act 1991. Every councillor in the country got sent out a hard copy from
yes,
the
I have.
ministers. Do you have that?
Yes, I do.
It is a doorstop material.
Yes.
What further advice would you like in terms of resource?
Well, there's many good resources available that provided concise and comprehensive summaries of its intent, and I just wondered if there was any recommendations that could be made there.
My personal recommendations, for instance, if you go to Google RMA reform, there is a fantastic series of papers there, and if you go to the FAQ ones around why are the changes necessary, what does it mean, what are the three acts that replace the RMA, and there's that. There's also the local government committee. I'm trying to think of the mayor that heads that, and his name's eluding me at the moment. But there is a working party working with Local Government New Zealand, and those papers are also available.
Toby.
Thank you. The Mayor of Hauraki, Toby, is the mayor heading that.
Thank you.
We are also being taken, for those online, we're also being taken through a series of workshops. And Councillor Gordon, do you wish to make any comment around those? They sit, they sit in your portfolio more than anyone else's.
We get links to those sent out. Katrina's going to do that for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further thing I can discuss offline, Councillor? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. Yes, my query is around the bottom of page 20 and the top of 21 with regards to inviting Ngāti Hinimanu and Ngāti Paki to be part of the Taibi Wastewater Treatment Plan. I wondered how that's progressing.
Comment from Jess? Perhaps
Yes.
you can take us through that?
Yeah, hi. So we've made contact with both Ngāti Paki and Ngāti Hinimanu, and we'll arrange a meeting to discuss further.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Any further questions from councillors? Councillor Belsham.
Yeah, just a question in regards with the field trip being organised in February to the Manawatu District Council wastewater plant. February being a short month, and have we got a date actually scheduled so elected members can get it in their calendar?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. It's going to be a tight month, I thought, and if it has been scheduled for February.
Will that be subject to change now that we're in red, back in red? Welcome everybody back to red.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I may ask, would it be more suitable if we would move it on to March? Would it suit better? Or would councillors prefer to have it in February? We can make either one work.
March would be fine, but I guess it's whatever you work out between Manawatu. But February is a tight month. I just thought if you had the date now, that at least elected members can get it put into their diary.
My advice to staff, it's their call to arrange it, but my advice would be in terms of where we are with Omicron, all the advice that we get is that we're likely to have a very significant rise in cases, peaking probably in about the next 20 odd days. So if we're going to do it, we probably need to do it quickly and now. March, we're likely to be in a very difficult state.
Your Worship, if I may, and I thank Councillor for bringing it up. My recommendation would be to postpone that indefinitely. My reason for that is that a wastewater plant is a critical piece of infrastructure, and the people that go with that, and with the unknown nature of Omicron, it would be unthinkable if we were to have a posse of people turn up and one of us unknowingly had COVID and it impacted the staff that we're trying our very best to wrap in cotton wool from COVID, as it's a critical service. So I wonder if that would be acceptable to elected members.
Comment from elected members?
I would certainly endorse the Chief Executive's comments. My thoughts would be exactly the same.
Yeah, happy with that.
Thank you. I think that would have to be some incredibly high need to warrant a site visit in these times. Yeah. Right. Any further matters that councillors wish to raise? No, and on that note, we have welcomed Councillor Hira and Councillor Ash online and Councillor Gordon to chambers. Thank you very much. Would somebody like to move or receive that report? Councillor Belsham, Councillor Wilson, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. The Mayor's report is tabled on page 24 along with places that I've been and people that I've seen, or some of them. I will certainly take it as read, but I will comment further around where we are with Omicron and COVID. So the latest advice we have as a council is everybody will be aware we have Omicron alive and well and breeding in New Zealand. We had, as of yesterday, I think 45 cases. They are expecting, the models suggest a doubling of cases on a daily basis nationally. And that case numbers may well get to 5,000 cases per day nationally. And while Omicron certainly isn't as virulent as Delta, the sheer numbers of people infected will put incredible stresses on DHBs, for example, and the number of organisations that will have significant numbers of staff, including police, etc. So we are fronting, we're at the start of what was likely to be a very, very challenging process. If there are any questions around that or any other part of my report, I'm happy to take them. Councillor Wilson.
For me, just noting your to attend meetings in the light of where we now sit nationally, are they all online meetings for you, Your Worship? Because I'm sure you would have to pull back on some.
Yes, so a number will be pulled back on. So Local Government New Zealand, as of virtually yesterday, have come out with a position that all of the Local Government New Zealand meetings, which includes things like Zoom, zone meetings, rural, provincial, etc., will move to a Zoom process to show, first of all, leadership and to provide certainty that these things will actually happen. Because equally the danger is they just drop off the horizon. Peter, as Chief Executive, do you wish to make any comments around the impact of Omicron in terms of us as an organisation?
Thank you, Worship. I would just comment that our senior staff have worked together, and maybe if I could ask Sharon to, when I finish, to say a few remarks as well. Sharon is leading Council's response as part of the executive team. Our obvious concern is the impact it will have on our staff resources, and how do we plan for a reduction in staff that could be anywhere between 25 and even up to 50%. We have reviewed and revised our pandemic plan given this, and we've been working with our teams to look at how we deal with, firstly, our critical services and how we, which of those that we always must maintain, and secondly, how we look at maintaining safety of the public in our buildings. When it comes to our work and those critical services, our staff are diverted to making sure that those critical services are retained and maintained, like drinking water, etc. Where we will therefore fail to deliver a service because we don't have the staff available, I've asked my team to ensure that we make that very clear, both to you as elected members, but to the public, which services we will no longer, or projects, for example, that we will no longer be able to deliver as a result of the lack of staff. My final point is working also collaboratively with my peers in the region and with Horizons Regional Council. We're looking at those critical services and how we might support each other, particularly the smaller councils that have a small number of resources in water or wastewater, and also in supply chain for critical components or chemicals, in the case may be, for our water and wastewater plants. And I've been working, as I said, with Horizons and my peers and other councils on that. If I may move to Sharon, Your Worship.
Thanks, Peter, and that's a really good summary. Probably I don't have a lot to add other than just to really emphasise, I guess, the three key priorities that are inherent within our Omicron plan, and that is keeping our people safe, maintaining our critical services, even if at a reduced level, and ensuring that we communicate and are really clear on what we're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon.
Thanks, Your Worship. Peter, prior, a month or so ago, or even before Christmas, you had a plan laid out as to what areas were going to be accessible to the public and which weren't. And this room was almost a bit of an outlier in a way, because, you know, you have both us elected members and potentially members of the public, you know, in close contact with your key staff. Have you got any plans to actually change the accessibility of this area? Because my personal view is I think this area is a weak link, and, you know, if the proverbial starts hitting the fan, I don't even think we should be in the room. We should be on that mechanism there.
So we have in the red setting. I'm going to answer your question perhaps in a different way, Councillor. In the red setting, it does. I'm not sure if the word is encourage us to work from home. Is it?
It's working from home is encouraged for those roles where it is appropriate.
So when we were in red to start with, given there were no cases in our district or region, we opted to say to staff, if you wish to work from home, you can, but it really is business as usual. Within that red setting, as the executive, we have agreed that we will review that on a daily basis. And if we feel that the risk is getting greater, which would mean that there are cases in the district or they're growing in our neighbouring districts, then we would revert to a more mandated work from home process. At the moment, it's voluntary, but we have a sliding scale that says within the red setting, we may ask our staff to work from home. So the same would apply for venues. If we feel that there's a lot of transmission in our community, we may choose to revise this office as well as other offices.
A subsequent follow-up question.
Follow-up question. Peter, would it be beneficial if elected members had a talk amongst themselves and gave you some guidance as to where we see ourselves?
That will happen. We have a Zoom call and members that are here at 12:15.
Thanks.
And that is the principal item on the discussion around the effectiveness of council, the effectiveness of Zoom, the availability of rapid antigen testing, etc. So we will be certainly having that conversation. I would just like to sort of finish this before I move the receipt of my report. Yesterday I was on Zoom with virtually all of the chief executives, mayors, DHBs, etc. And really it was about where we're going to be with Omicron and what's the country going to look like. But certainly late in the Zoom call, the conversation moved on to one of where government is currently sitting in terms of reform. So we have the reform of the three waters, we have reform of all sorts of other things, the RMA, civil defence, education sector, you name it, it is being reformed. Certainly there was an air of disappointment and in some cases almost anger around wanting to say to government, please, this is not a good environment for us to be able to handle these issues and consult. Noting that the civil defence reform has to be done by the 11th of February at the moment, I think it is. So huge workloads, enormous changes to the way local government will operate, the way communities will operate, etc. So it's interesting that that's the feelings around the country at the moment. Any further questions around my report or things that I'm attending? Otherwise, thank you. Councillor Duncan.
Just to follow up with what you've just said, Your Worship, I'd like to know where does local government NZ sit with that as far as advocating for councils?
So that question was asked local government. It was a local government Zoom. Local government have said that they will go back to the government and ask for delays and express our concern over the rate of change and the timing of it when we're trying to deal with pandemics.
Thank you.
And we have a number of working parties, you know, RMA reform, civil defence, Three Waters, obviously. All of those are all going back to government as well. Thank you. I'll move the receipt of my council reports. Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Carter seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Move on to the next one, which is the Chief Executive's report. Move to the Chief Executive. Peter, could you take us through this, please?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Excuse me, sorry.
Councillor Duncan?
Sorry, was I, am I wrong in thinking there was an attachment to your report, Your Worship? A letter that was tabled?
Yes, there was. And I'm just looking for it in front of me now. Which one?
Underneath.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. So we've had a letter from Mokai Pātea Services that is tabled, and I think Tracy Hero, the General Manager of that, and it's writing on behalf of Naiwi o Mokai Pātea Services Trust to confirm our support for the fundraising efforts that are being undertaken on behalf of the Rangitikei District Council of Taihape Grandstand. Mokai Pātea Services are an iwi mandated health and social services organisation that uses the facilities down at the Taihape recreational ground when they run projects and initiatives. And we look forward to being able to utilise a newly refurbished grandstand when renovated, and look forward to this iconic building providing for people that not only take part in their projects, but for the community and many visitors that come to Taihape. I'll ask Tracy, Councillor Hira, to respond in a second. I have put a draft response in which says, Dear Tracy, I acknowledge your letter of support from Mokai Pātea Services in respect to supporting their fundraising being undertaken on behalf of the Rangitikei District Council for the renovation of the Taihape Grandstand. Your organisation is one of the principal community organisations in Taihape, and for the grandstand refurbishment to go ahead, we will desperately need community support. Again, thank you for showing your leadership in regard to this. It is much appreciated. So that is my draft reply. Councillor Hira, do you wish to make any further comment? You're on Zoom at the moment. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. In the first instance, apologies for my lateness to this morning's hui. Is within my other role as the General Manager, I'm trying to sort out staffing issues, but we've been able to, hence the reason I was late. Just to say that it's in my head, the connection that we have in with council and being able to support it in any way, that's just a given in my mind, regardless of whether I was an elected member of council or not. Working together in collaboration, we're only a small town, we're a small region, so we need to support each other in whatever the initiatives that are out there, and we will certainly be supporting in any which way we can as an org in regards to this fundraising effort. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Your support is appreciated, obviously, not only in the field of this, but the support that you've given in terms of this pandemic and everything else that happens in Taihape is deeply appreciated. Mokai Pātea Services and iwi generally beat councils to the game around support to communities with regard to this pandemic, and I am deeply appreciative.
Thank you, Andy.
Any further comment from councillors? but seeking also an endorsement of my acknowledgement back to Manga Patia.
Happy to endorse your reply, Your Worship.
Okay, we'll take that as an, and I've got some thumbs up for those online, thank you. It'll become part of the receipt of my council report, so I'll move it. We had a seconder. Councillor Gordon, those in favour? We'd already done it actually, thank you.
So we don't need it.
Thank you. Move to the Chief Executive's report. Item 9. Pass to you, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mostly taken as read. I would look at item 1 and particularly the Taihape Memorial Park being used by the dressage group. I received a lovely email from that group to thank staff for the quality of the surface, etc. And I know a lot of work has gone into that, and I just wanted to raise that here because I'm very proud of the team and what they've done up in that park. So I thank them. I will move to point 4, the Emergency Management Regulatory Framework Review. You mentioned it earlier. Just ask Sharon to give a slightly greater than what's actually written in the report. Sharon?
Thank you. So as mentioned, this is one of the government reforms currently underway. So right now the National Emergency Management Agency is undertaking a targeted engagement on a range of topics for possible inclusion into the Emergency Management Bill. And that bill will then be subject to formal consultation. So really right now what they're doing is identifying what should be included in that bill. There are 4 key areas that they are engaging on. Within each of those areas, there is a number of topic options that they are seeking feedback on. Those areas are roles and responsibilities, and what that really means is the role of CDM groups and whether that should continue to be local coordination or move to more regional coordination. They're also engaging on how we include disproportionately impacted people, and in the proposals that refer specifically to iwi Māori and people with disabilities, as well as others that are specific to the community that we're serving. It looks at critical infrastructure and in particular the planning and levels of service for restoration of critical infrastructure following an event. And finally, it invites feedback around iwi and Māori representation and participation in making some specific provision for that within the bill. So feedback is due on the 11th of February and we're currently working with our regional CDM group, and we do intend to provide some feedback on the proposals.
Thank you.
Any questions from councillors? This is again a situation where we're moving to a regional approach. We do have a regional approach to some extent already within the Horizons regional group, so it's not totally new, but it is concerning around the timeframes and consultation processes. It is also concerning to me with a number of the reforms that are being put out. We're being asked for feedback, and the feedback is targeted around specific sections, but they are feedback really as to how this will happen, not if it will happen. Thank you. Please continue. Councillor Gordon.
Your Worship, are staff looking for input from councillors on this? Because I see that date falls immediately after our first assets meeting, but honestly 1 day before is pretty tight to give feedback. So
it was not my intention to get elected member feedback for this stage. I would anticipate working with our regional group through with Horizons and having a consolidated response into the bill rather than the notification now.
Yep, thank you.
And the same would apply to point 6 in the drinking water. Yes. Would that meet your expectations, Your Worship?
Yes, thank you. Before I go to Councillor Hira, my understanding there was also feedback sent out to all elected members with the opportunity for them to comment with a reference back to the changes. I had assumed that it all went to all councillors. I certainly got a copy myself. Did other councillors receive something?
When was that sent? Your worship.
Oh, look, I will go back and check, and I'll send it out to you. And Sharon.
Yes, so that is correct. NEMA's inviting, it's targeted engagement, so it's not public engagement, but they are inviting feedback from individuals who are involved in emergency management as well as entities. So you can respond as an individual and as an entity.
So look, I'll just check that if you haven't received it, then that it becomes available to you. Councillor Hira.
Thank you. Given that you're going to be sending something out where we can comment, what I was going to say, thing that I wanted to just put out there was being further disconnected from a local point of view. And the first one you talked about was roles and responsibilities as the focus for those CDEM groups. So my issue would be about going back into a regional space. That means, in my mind, sitting here in Taihape and having that connect, is that potentially that loses again. It means that it becomes further disconnected from those smaller communities. So that was just my first thought when you'd given those areas of focus, Sharon. So, but I'm happy to look at the document when it gets sent out and put my thoughts around that. Thank you.
That's very much a general view from councillors all around the country.
Yeah.
So, Councillor Duncan.
Further to that, I'd be concerned about, as what happened with Three Waters, where councils were consulted with, and iwi were consulted with, but then it was mandated before the public could be consulted. At this stage, this CDM is going to be, is being consulted with councils in a way, getting their feedback. Is there any intention to go to the public at all with this? Do we know?
So I'm not sure whether you will have been picked up online. Can you just answer really loud?
I believe that public consultation will happen at the bill stage.
Thank you.
Nothing else to report, Your Worship. I'll take the rest of the report as read.
There's some decisions around Turupiaka membership. You might want to raise that.
Question, if I may, sorry, Your Worship, with regards to item 2 in health and safety. So there was two incidents and 3 near misses, but given the time when the comment underneath it says due to Chris's breakdown data for that will be presented in February, the fact that there were 2 incidents, the fact that there was 3 near misses reported is excellent. The fact that it had some reporting done, but one assumes that nothing slipped through the gaps there into looking into those incidences and the near misses, given the fact that we've gone through this Christmas period and the data's not there. The follow-up's been in place.
No, absolutely. They have been looked into, investigated, resolved and actioned. It's just simply that we haven't presented a dashboard for this month, and we'll present the data for both December and January on the February dashboard.
That's good. Fine, thank you.
Wish to continue? Oh, sorry, Arno.
Sorry, Your Worship, if I may just comment on that last point from Sharon. What's interesting out of all of this, it actually added a very positive action on some of these activities that we're going to roll out over the rest of the organisation. So although there were 2 new misses, the outcome of that has been really positive for those staff and potentially for the whole organisation. So it's something we'll bring to you in the future, but it's actually quite exciting what's come out of it and some enthusiasm from those staff on health and safety. So it's been really good, actually.
Excellent, thank you.
It is continuing a good thing, Your Worship.
Let it roll.
What's really impressed me, and I know I wish for governors to see with their own eyes this, and so you need to take it obviously verbally in this case, but and normally you would see it with your eyes through the dashboard reporting and and walking around, etc. The on this particular issue, to Arno's point, one of the hardest things in a culture of health and safety is someone putting up their hand to say, I made a mistake, or I did something which was dangerous, or I created a risk. And this is the very living of that these people have put their hand up, accepted they made an error, and the team came around them and said, okay, as long as you're safe and we've got those things in place to make sure that after all there's a loss of control, we can restabilise, but how can other people learn from that? And that's exactly, and to do that openly without fear of being isolated or whatever, is a real strong indicator of culture, which is I'm absolutely delighted.
Right, thank you very much. We'll deal with some recommendations. First, that the Chief Executive's report be received. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Carter, those in favour? Carried, thank you. The next one is a recommendation around the appointment to Te Rupi Car Committee. So we have had a resignation from Councillor Panapa. Councillor, I thank you for the work that you've done with regard to that committee. I'm looking for a councillor to be appointed to that committee. Have we anybody, Councillor Wilson?
I'm looking at the recommendation, Your Worship, and not to step into the space before somebody may be putting their hand up, and forgive me if I have. I believe that the all recommendation being that following the resignation of Councillor Parnham, no further appointments be made to Te Rupi Car and the Te Rupi Committee, given the time that we're potentially in, and also the time we are with regards to the electoral cycle and the triennium coming up in August of this, September of this year. I would wonder if there's any great urgency, but that would be just my thoughts.
So you're moving that?
I'm moving the all recommendation of recommendation 2.
Looking for a seconder too. Thank you, Councillor Lambert seconding. Do you wish to speak further to that?
No, I think I've said my thinking behind it. If we were at an earlier stage in our triennium, I would have certainly been taking a slightly different view, but I believe that that's where we are at the moment.
I have speakers, Councillor Belsham, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Belsham.
It's a question rather than speaking to the recommendation, and it's in regards with representation of the governance on those committees. So what representation does that leave us with for the rest of this triennium? So who sits on?
Yeah, we're fortunate with Te Rupi Car. First of all, Councillor Hero sits on that committee under a different hat, and I regularly attend. So
And Councillor Rokawa.
And Councillor Rokawa. So they are there as of right. So we do have a fair seat at that table. I tend to attend most of the Turakina committee meetings. Councillor Carter is also there. So I don't see that we would be...
That's fine. That I just want to know that we did have representation there, so that they don't feel like they're being abandoned, so to speak.
I have Councillor Gordon, Councillor Hira, Councillor Gordon first.
So mine is a question as well, and really it was along the lines of has any councillor indicated that they were prepared to fill either of those gaps?
I haven't had anybody come to me specifically. Councillor Hira.
Kia ora. The question that was asked by regarding the representation, where does it sit from a council point of view? I think that the Mayor Andy does attend those meetings. It's because of course it's cut into two spaces. Those meetings, there's one side of it is just Te Rōpūahi Car members themselves, and then it switches over. But I feel like there is good representation within the council and the Te Rōpūahi Car meetings themselves. So I was going to support the recommendation that was put forward by Councillor Wilson, I think that's the right thing to do, given the timing of Councillor Panapa's resignation. And like you say, if it was earlier on in the piece, I felt that it was there, but I think that there's enough coverage. If people are confident with, I sit there, of course, with a different hat on, and a lot of the times when it comes from an iwi space, that's the feedback that I'm going to be giving. But also, being a councillor, it's also in a good space, I feel, because I feel like I'm able to give a wider view to Te Rōpū Ahika members of where council might be coming from. So that's the benefit of sitting on both. Yes, you've got you can give your point of view from that hat as an iwi delegate, but actually being a councillor, that also steps into play as well. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. I just want to say that I did have a conversation with Councillor Panapa some time ago, and then just recently when I saw his resignation, and discussed the fact that I would be happy to step into that role if it was the will of our committee that should be fulfilled for the last part of this triennium. However, I'm very happy to take the committee's and certainly I would like to hear what Councillor Panapa has to say about this. Thank you.
It's up to the councillor as to whether he wishes to speak to the motion that's on the floor. Councillor Panapa.
Yeah, thank you for discussing this, and I apologise for the abruptness of this resignation. However, the initial reason that I joined, or I put my name forward for Te Rōpū Ahika, was because I had not had engagement with that body prior to election, and I needed to understand the paradigm and the dynamic of how they consult. I've been considering for the last probably 6 months of stepping down, mainly in terms of perspective. I've had a number of conversations with Angus, for instance, Councillor Gordon, in terms of the value that he derived from being the representative of council. And I know from a Māori perspective, Tracy and Coral both bring to this table their perspective of the consultation around that table. But for a non-Māori member to be on that body, to bring their perspective of how that body consults, I think is quite valuable around this table. So the certain life things that happened and have precipitated my resignation, but I am very comfortable to endorse Councillor Duncan to be if she wishes to sit on that body. I feel that there is a very positive and valuable role that she can play sitting on the Te Rōpū Ahika table. So, thank you.
Okay. I'll move back to a right reply because we are speaking to a motion. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, interesting to hear those comments, Councillor Panapa. Thank you for that. Raises a very good point. However, I did put that motion because I do come back to the fact of where we sit within our triennium. I just wonder, just given where we sit in the triennium, with the fact that we've got elections coming up in effectively 6 months' time, I wonder if there's a need, when we are quite well represented, as the conversation around the table has shown us. We are very fortunate also, particularly with Te Rōpū Ahika and the Turakina Community Committee, to have a very good relationship with both of those organisations throughout the council, particularly with Te Rōpū Ahika and the relationship that has been long founded by His Worship the Mayor, which holds us in good stead. I still wonder if it's worthwhile somebody being in that space at this point in time. However, I'm speaking to my motion, and I've put the motion, and should the motion be lost, and should Councillor Duncan wish to step into that space, I'd also endorse that. But
Right, I now must put to the vote those in favour of the motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6. Those against? 1.
I've got a question, sorry.
Is that a question with regard to the motion?
Yeah, well, I just wanted just clarity to say at the moment there's 4 meetings.
I'm sorry, councillor. I've now got to the stage of actually putting the vote, and I need to have that concluded. Understanding orders. Is that correct, Ms. Gordon? Sorry, I don't have that opportunity to go back in terms of process.
For those against, can we do that again?
I'll take the vote again. Those in favour of the motion, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Those against, 1, 2, 4.
There were other hands being lifted as you were counting.
There are questions. I'll go back again.
Please leave your hand up so we can count.
Leave your hand up. Those in favour of the motion.
Can you repeat the motion?
The motion is that the following the resignation of Councillor Parampa, no further appointments be made to Te Rupe Aka and the Turakina community committees at this time and effectively. So those in favour of the motion, and can I have some staff member please take account?
Changed every time.
Changed, yeah.
That was 4. First time around, yeah.
Those against the motion, and can you hold your hands up clearly, please? And the motion is lost by my taking. Correct, staff?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, the motion is lost. I'm looking for a subsequent motion to be put on the table. Councillor Belsham.
I'd be happy to move that Councillor Duncan be appointed to the Te Rupe Ahika Committee and that she also be appointed to the Turakina Community Committee.
Can I just check whether you're offering to be appointed to both, councillor?
I wasn't actually aware that they came as a parcel. I'm not sure what the obligation is to the Turakina Community Committee.
We'll deal with them separately. So recommendation 3 would be that Councillor Jill Duncan be appointed to Te Rupe Aka Committee. You're moving, Councillor Belsham. Councillor Gordon is seconding. Do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I'd be happy to see it put to the vote.
Are there any speakers to the motion? That... Put it straight to the vote then. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. With regard to what will become now recommendation 4, the Turakina Community Committee representation, bearing in mind that we have Councillor Carter who is happy to sit there. You're on. Councillor Belsham.
I'd be happy to move that no further appointment be made to the Turakina Community Committee for the remainder of this triennium.
Councillor Panapo, are you seconding that? Speakers to it. I think that is, I'll speak to it. I think that is appropriate. I think if you're going to have a representative on it, it probably needs to be someone from that particular ward. While we have a ward structure, I think the Turakina Committee would find it slightly odd if we had someone from outside the ward. And no reflection on you, Councillor Duncan, at all. Any other speakers to it? Right of reply? Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any further things that I need to do in terms of the Chief Executive's report? There are no items. That's a late item, so that's
Late on, yep.
Yep. Moving on to the reports for decision, item 10 on the agenda. Gordon, are you going to take us through this?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
So this report covers a number of aspects with regards to our 22-23 annual plan. I'll take the majority of the report as read, but I will expand on the item number 3.1.4, which is the heading anomalies in overhead allocations. There's a reference there that we sought a legal opinion on this matter, and we have subsequently done that, and we've received that opinion back from Simpson Grierson. It is quite extensive, but what I might do is just read you out what their advice is, and if there's either any further questions around that, then we can answer it. We do have in the room David Foster, who has actually been helping us do a peer review on this as well, and he's given us advice, given Simpson Grierson advice, and we'll bring him to the table shortly if there's further questions that he can assist with. So the summary from Simpson Grierson says that, in our opinion, there is nothing to suggest that an LTP amendment or consultation would be required or prudent in the circumstances that they have considered. First and most importantly, from the latest information Council provided, it does not appear there is in fact any anomaly or discrepancy in the relevant overhead figures in the funding impact statements. According to accounting advice, the figures are based on a methodology for allocating overheads that is robust and valid. Accordingly, no change in the figures is necessary, and logically, no LTP amendment would be necessary or possible because no change to the figures would be made. The same applies to consultation. There is nothing to be consulted on in that regard. Secondly, hypothetically, if there had been some kind of discrepancy in the overhead allocation across activities in certain years covered by the LTP, we, that's Simpson Grierson, still question whether that necessarily would result in an LTP amendment being required or prudent. Our understanding is that the overhead allocation stated on an activity by activity basis in the LTP has no or minimal impact on the Council's funding of its activities or rates and debt levels. In particular, there's no impact on the whole of Council financial statements. This is the case for later years covered by the LTP, which is years 4 to 10, which will be more accurately covered in an updated LTP in due course. On this basis, it would seem unnecessary for any LTP amendment or consultation. As a final point, in the Local Government Act, Section 96 provides that a resolution to adopt an LTP or an annual plan does not constitute a decision to act on any specific matter included within the plan. This highlights the general concept that the LTP is a plan, and simply because there is a chance or likelihood that things will not follow the plan to the letter does not necessarily mean that the plan is invalid or requires amendment. In this context, the fact that certain figures in the activity by activity funding impact statements may or may not be reasonable or accurate, depending on the different accounting methodology used, does not render invalid the LTP itself, especially where the figures themselves do not have any impact on rates or debt levels. So that is their advice to us, which is pretty clear.
I have a couple of questions around this. The first is, that's an advice that you've just read to Council. How does that become part of Council record?
We can put it as a tabled document on our website, the actual opinion from Simpson Grierson, if you would like.
Would that meet with the Chair of Finance's approval?
Yeah, certainly was going to be one of my questions. Can that advice and report be provided as a table document to this report?
Yes.
And then it just gives some evidence there, clear evidence behind it.
Thank you. We're on the same page. The second question I would have is with regard to 3.1.4, external advice including a legal opinion is being sought, and the Council follows the appropriate processes to address these anomalies. So what is the appropriate process flowing from this?
So the appropriate process would be that we just continue with our annual plan as we have scheduled. We do not need to cover anything else in terms of this allocation of overheads as part of that.
So so the summary of that is no further process is appropriate effectively. There's
right.
nothing that we need to do to adjust.
Yes, as a matter of course of preparing for the annual plan, all budgeted figures will be reviewed to see if they're still relevant and need updating.
And that we seek any correction required in 2023 is because I've just got to relate what is in the order paper to the decision that you've given us.
So in terms of the next LTP, I think the advice that Mr. Foster and Mr. Toombs have talked about is how overheads will be allocated and what methodology we use going forward. And that'll be a discussion as part of that LTP. There's different ways of doing it, and maybe we could ask Mr. Foster to come to the table. He's far more experienced on that than I am, and he could make some comment about that, if you're happy with that.
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps in welcoming Mr. Foster to the table, and I appreciate, Dave, you being here, some background on the relevance of being able to give us this advice.
I might introduce Mr. Foster if that's okay, because I'm sure not all councillors will be familiar with Dave. Very experienced in local government finance world. Rather than summarise and maybe miss some of his history, I'd like to take the liberty of having 30 seconds of your time just to read through it, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Thank you very much. So, despite his youthful looks, Dave does have over 30 years of being directly involved in a senior level with local government finance. I'll just start back in the up until early 2000s. Dave progressed through the roles at Wanganui City Council to be CFO in various roles. 2005-2006, Office of the Auditor General, working on a central review of the 2006 long-term plans. Dave personally reviewed and cleared 55 local authority LTPs. 3 years CFO at Manukau. Oh, my pronunciation's not getting any better, I do apologise. Manukau City Council. A few years outside the sector, CFO of Auckland Transport. Then back into the sector, CFO, COO of Rotorua District Council. Since 2017, been consulting, interim CFO at Stratford District, interim CFO in Invercargill City for 2 years. Worked on LTP and financial strategies for Stratford District, Taronga City, Hamilton City, Southland Region, Timaru District, Wakatani District. Worked on revenue and financing policies for Southland Region, Timaru District, Stratford District, Hamilton City. Member of Solgum Financial Management Working Party for 12 years and was part of the writing the first know-how guides for Local Government Rating Act. Member of NZ's Society of Accountants Financial Standards Committee for 3 years. That's exciting stuff. And been involved in local government restructures, 1989 structure and 2010 restructure of Auckland. So fairly deep history there of being involved at a direct level of local government finance.
Incredibly impressive. We're humbled to have you at the table, sir.
Still in his 40s, I mean.
So any comment that you would like to make?
Yeah, I think a key, you're going to go through to 2024 with your LTP, you'll adopt a new LTP. My recommendation to Dave is actually that you really take a serious look at overhead allocation and actually whether you even have it. Based on an analysis, all of your overhead is met from rates. Right? Doesn't have an impact on any decision that you make in terms of setting the rate. And even the variations that are in the LTP have clearly not flowed through to your decisions on setting rates. So what you've got is you've actually got, to my mind, a very, very good LTP in terms of its strategy. Right? So you're now in a position where your LTP reflects that for this year, you're talking about an equivalent rates rise across every rating class. Right? So when you resolve what you're going to do with rates, you're in a position that if you say you're going to have a 7% rates rise, a ratepayer will open their bill and they will see a 7% rates rise. Right? And that's actually really good because one of the major problems local authorities run into with rates over the years is that for years we've talked around the table and said, well, we're going to have a 5% rates rise, but it's going to be different in different things. So water rates are going to rise by this much, and general rates are going to rise by this much, and the roading rate's going to do this. And so then somebody opens their rates and they see a significant difference to what you've said. So in analysing your LTP, it's very clear from your LTP that any discrepancies, if there were or are any, have not reflected in terms of your decision for where you're going with your rating profile. And your rating profile is really the critical thing that comes out of an LTP, right? How are you going to do your rates? And clearly one of the things that's going to happen in 2024 is, already covered the Three Waters. The scheduled date for Three Waters go live is the 1st of July, 2024. At that point, you will know how much the government is going to give you for the debt that you currently hold. You'll know also how much of the overhead that's being attributed into that activity is going to be stranded or not stranded. And at that point, you'll be working through your 2024 rate setting, understanding all of those issues. I think you're very well positioned in regards to where that may go from your point of view. Right? To me, the danger for councils in the Three Waters is that the water companies set up and are able to make water cheaper because they don't have the overheads and they have a whole range of other potential benefits. But part of the way they make it better is that they've left a whole lot of cost behind in the councils. And the councils then have to consult about the fact that they need a 10% rates increase to cover something they're no longer doing. Okay, so I think you're well prepared in that. But for this annual plan, no impact, right? Because it clearly, if it had impacted on how you'd set your rates, then you'd consult on the rates impact, not the overhead. Because the overhead all sums to zero, right? It goes out of here and it goes into there. How you rearrange that doesn't matter. But clearly for you, it is not impacting on your rate setting decisions, and it didn't impact on your rate setting decisions in that plan.
I'll take questions around this. I have a couple, but first of all, councillors, do you all have an understanding of what is being referred to as the overhead section of this conversation? Sometimes we just assume that everybody knows these things. So those are the costs of running the organisation. It is having staff, etc. It is having facilities, etc. A couple of questions. Thank you for your advice. I think it is appropriate. It raises a couple of other questions in my mind. In terms of the Three Waters, clearly being able to identify the stranded overheads associated with the Three Waters as opposed to the stranded overheads associated with everything else, is that an advantage to us? Or does it just murky the water?
It's a side issue. I think it's an important issue for you to understand between now and next year. Probably not for this annual plan, but to actually understand what your organisation will look like post and what costs are going to remain. And that'll be a really important part of you deciding what your rates splits and rates costs are going to be. You do have a significant advantage in the mix of it, that you have a targeted rate for public good water and sewage. So that the view at the moment is that all of the charges that you have for water will transfer to the new entity. Right? They may be set up in time to be able to set their own charges, but it's unlikely. So the view is that they'll pay. There's actually a potential view, depending on how set up they are, that they'll actually pay you and you'll pay that money straight across. But because you have that targeted rates, which is district-wide, it's not going to go. That will remain with you to determine how you will set that into 2024 and beyond. And that creates quite an insurance, I guess, for you in terms of the overhead. And you don't have that much overhead going into the waters.
And we're not quite sure where the government's position around no council will be worse off. It absolutely sits within this area as well. Dave?
Yeah, I was going to mention a specific point, and the government's no worse off plan program is still being developed. So
yeah, that's the rub of it, isn't it? It's still being developed. I'll go to Councillor Belsham as Chair of Finance. Councillor.
And thank you, Dave, for providing that comment and opinion. The important thing for us to understand is that we've had expert opinion from yourself in regards with these anomalies that had been identified, and we've had legal opinion to say that they do have no material impact to our LTP. So as governors and elected members, I think we can have confidence to say we've done our due diligence and sourced outside opinion, and can be happy that things are on the right track. So thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Follow on from that, if I may, Your Worship, from Councillor Belsham as the Chair of Finance. These so-called anomalies were brought to us by Dave Toombs and his team in late last year, and it was raised as a potential red flag to us as councillors. That to me is very pleasing. The outcome is also pleasing, but the fact that it was originally raised to us as something, hey guys, we need to have a look at that, and the appropriate actions have been taken, and the opinions that we've heard today are good, as well as the legal opinion. So first of all, thank you for flagging it, because I think it was appropriate that it was flagged and raised, and it's been brought to this table.
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Foster, for that reassurance that we're going to be okay. The escalation of costs, you've been talking about Three Waters implication, but it really was the escalation of costs that have continued to climb that has triggered this, as far as I'm aware. I'm really looking for clarification here to make sure I've got the right end of the stick. Obviously, Three Waters is going to be an impact, but what I'm hearing is that really it is the cost of materials, the cost of labour, the cost of everything that's gone through the roof within this COVID climate that has triggered these concerns about anomalies and overheads. I think those are the words. Can I have clarification on that?
I think, Councillor Duncan, you have got slightly off track here. Perhaps the Chief Executive may wish to comment, or one of our learned friends in the dark arts of finance can. I'll go to the Chief Executive first.
I think the purpose of this paper is to signal that staff intend to continue with an annual plan process this year that you'll be asked to resolve. There are, however, a small number of things that make us pause and question, would we actually need to undertake an LTP revision instead of an annual plan? And you would do that in quite extreme circumstances. And those things are in section 3, which was, as you've just said, cost escalation, the sequencing currently in our long-term plan of Taihape Town Hall coming after Martin Civic Centre, etc. Our debt and these potential anomalies. Of all of those, the anomalies was the one we didn't really feel the most comfortable with as staff without getting independent feedback. And so that feedback has come and said, effectively, you do not need to address this and do another LTP this year. So the recommendation at this is be received, but that we will continue to work on it, although I'm not going to that, but it will go to an annual plan. So that's the purpose of the paper. And you may wish to consider those other things as whether you wish us to undertake or happy for us to undertake an annual plan.
Thank you for that.
If effectively, they are two separate issues.
Yeah.
The first issue is around, there are some anomalies that have been identified within terms of the overhead allocation within council. So, and I am perfectly happy with the advice that we're being given, that wouldn't drive an LTP. When, Councillor, when you're referring to cost escalations, that is a separate item, independent to stranded overheads.
Yes.
Do either of you two wish to comment further?
You said it very succinctly, Your Worship.
Councillor Belsham.
Yeah, I was just going to signal that in the report it does state that the next step is a workshop on the 17th of February where discussion on those concerns would take place that Councillor Duncan has raised. So, that's the opportunity to actually discuss the concerns at that date, I would think.
Yeah, so certainly in terms of cost escalations, we need some further advice around what those cost escalations are likely to be around our capital works program. So when we discuss capital works, we have a series of decisions around the level of service that we provide within those capital works, whether they are still appropriate, whether the timeframes are appropriate, all of those things, which in my view can be adjusted around an annual plan. So I'm quite comfortable with where we're at. Any further question around Councillor Wilson?
Just to move the receipt of the report.
Going to do that. Thank you, Councillor Wilson, moving. Seconded by who would like to go on the scoreboard? Councillor Carter, seconding. Those in favour? That is carried. So that's the report being received. A recommendation 2, that having considered the significance of matters impacting the annual plan 2023, we agree that a 2022-23 year be produced in accordance with statutory guidelines for annual plan. Councillor Duncan, do you have a question? Or are you moving?
Moving.
You're moving? Councillor Dalgety, are you seconding? Councillor Hero, is that a question or a seconding?
Seconding. Second.
I have Councillor Duncan, Councillor Dalgety first. Any further discussion around this? Bearing in mind there will be a series of workshops around it. Councillor Dalgety. You're on mute, Councillor.
Sorry, I didn't unmute when I asked it too. Just in relation to consulting with the spatial plan, will we be consulting, I'm just looking at those timeframes in section 4. Will we be consulting at the same time over our spatial plan?
There was a work program put out with regard to the spatial plan consultation. That would probably overlap, yes. Is it independent to the annual plan? Yes. Any further advice from staff? No, I've got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that answer the question? We'll take that as a yes. All right. So we've got a mover and seconder for the recommendation 2. The mover, Councillor Duncan, do you wish to speak to it? No. Any further speakers? No speakers, so right of reply is lost. I'll put it straight to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. And Dave, thank you very much for your time. I almost feel as though that there'll be a whole lot of councils queuing up to book your time with regard to implications of Three Waters. Yeah, so you might be a person very sought after nationally with regard to your experience.
Actually, I've done I'm an accounting propeller head, so I've got a history of all the LTPs for all of the local authorities since 2006 in terms of their financial information in the database. And I've already done an analysis on the entity A water and entity B water, which you form part of, in terms of the financial information and the potential impacts whole of organisations. So, yeah.
Good sales pitch.
I was going to say something very similar. So thank you. It highlights. I suspect that your phone will be ringing hot. Right, thank you very much. We move on to 10.2, support for the 2022 Ford Ranger Rural Games. So staff have typed in already, this item was not discussed. We probably need to put some discussion in there. So we've received advice that the Ford Ranger Rural Games are not proceeding this year. This item is in there as supporting a request for funds from Margaret Cavalis and others. I have tried to contact Margaret a couple of times, but at the moment the games aren't running. So I just suggest that we table this and move on. Any further advice from staff around this? No. So do we just put that we've received, or the reports, because they are in the order papers?
Happy to move the receipt of, Your Worship, to tidy it up.
Councillor Wilson moving to receive, Councillor Gordon seconding. Any questions around this? Any questions?
Your Worship, I was just going to suggest that as part of the commentary, we'll say that the reason there was no further discussion is that the games are no longer taking place, and that will tidy off the funding request as well.
Thank you very much. Do we need to reply to Margaret?
I'm sure she will ring you if she's seen you've rung her.
I've rung her twice over the last couple of days, so I thought I might have got a reply already.
We can take an action that...
I will be in.
Not in the motion.
Okay.
Right, let's keep it simple.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you. Moving right along to item 11, the reports for information and the Project Management Office report. I do have Jess online.
Hi.
Thank you, Jess. And I've got Adina in the room. Thank you very much. You must have snuck in. Please join us at the table. Right, who's going to take us through this?
I'll take us through the report.
Yeah.
I'll take it as read, but I will go through each project and allow time for any questions. The first project up is the Manga Bridge replacement. Do we have any questions or comments on this project?
No, I understand there's going to be a meeting with myself around, oh no, that's type in Memorial Park, sorry.
All good. With the opening of this, that's okay. We have the opening of this project on the 18th of February. And that's really exciting. It's a big milestone. We're also hoping to time that with the groundbreaking for the Taihape Amenities building, which we'll come to shortly as well.
This is interesting because I think that I'll be the only mayor in the country ever to open the same bridge twice in a term of office.
It's amazing.
It's an anomaly.
Your Worship, how fluid is that date given what's going on with COVID?
I pass back staff.
Yeah, absolutely. We will assess it closer to the time based on current advice and communicate any changes in advance.
Thank you.
Nothing further on Manga Bridge. We'll move on. Thanks, Jess.
Thank you. The next report is the Madden to Bulls Wastewater Centralization project. You may have noticed that we are in construction, and there are signs up at both the Martin and the Bulls end of the project. Are there any questions or comments on the bridge? The pipeline.
Councillor Lambert, please.
Just regarding the sign on the Wellington Road, that blocks the farmer's view when he comes out of his farm, the traffic heading south, he can't see anything. He's more than happy to have the sign moved into his paddock if it's easier for the council.
Okay, thank you. That's
I
really,
better disclose, I'm actually the farmer.
Cross conflict. Tell him to take a jump. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask if you could put me in touch with the farmer, but it sounds like I already know him.
Yeah, you do know him, yeah. No, just, Orjo, if you really want to move it into the paddock for, safety rules, then just to have it off the thing, it's more than happy to shift it.
That's great, thank you. I will advise the contractor.
Yeah.
Did you say that you're more than happy to shift it?
Yeah.
Or they are?
I normally would be, but it looks like they concreted it in or something like that. It looks like a bit of hard work to get it picked out.
Councillor Carter.
Councillor Carter, thank you.
Regarding the purchase of land for this project, how are we getting on with that?
I apologise, I couldn't hear the question.
Regarding the purchase of land?
We have no further updates at this time about available land for discharge to. We have included a comment about a meeting that we've had with Low Environmental, who presented their methodology to us on the 14th of January for managing wastewater discharge projects through to the best practicable option. And we are considering the option to engage them to oversee the full project, and that would include identifying and supporting us to purchase land.
It might be helpful, Your Worship, if Anna could just add to that.
Certainly.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I think for the value of other councillors, what we've done, we've identified with this project, there's a lot of different activities happening all at the same time, and it makes it really kind of difficult for us to keep an eye on all of it at all of the time. So there's the consenting, there's lots of engineering involved, there's the pictures of the land, there's a whole lot of different things. So what we've done with Low Environmental, that have a lot of local knowledge of the area, is to kind of see if we can negotiate some engagement with them where they keep an eye on the whole program, including all of those factors, and be sure that all of it moves along at the right speed. So, for instance, the land procurement is such a good example of where they can do some of the work to determine what land we need, and they'll know on their program when to start looking for it and how to do that. The same goes for the consenting, the same goes for some of the process engineering that we have to do, so all of that together. And for us then, as an organisation, to have confidence that none of those blocks will fall off at any time. And I think that's the important message for councillors today, is to have confidence that once we've got this set up, it will all move along at the correct speed.
Do you want to talk more about the actual land purchase component of that? Because they had a lot of environmentalists who don't do it just yet.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So what we have to consider is, if we go through the process of a best practical option, we're not 100% sure what that would look like. Under the guidance of Horizons, and we need to do that really quickly. Otherwise, what happens normally, you could spend 2 years on a VPO. We have to do that really concisely. If that then comes out that we need land of a certain type, of a certain size, we will pursue that. But before we know exactly what that would look like, it might be ill-advised to buy land right now until we have a firmer handle on what that's going to look like. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Dalgety.
I'm just interested, the previous property which we decided not to continue with, has it sold, and did it sell at the level we expected it to sell at?
I think you're moving into areas that I would be really wanting to know exactly what's being raised here. There's a whole series of potential confidentiality aspects with regard to this. Just some advice around whether I should be asking staff to answer this question.
Perhaps the question's best answered is I don't know, Your Worship.
Right, oh, that's a very good answer, thanks.
I never heard the answer, sorry.
The answer is we don't know from staff.
Okay. Thank you. Just
Councillor
wanting to know if, yeah, I think it's important. We do have, yeah, whether what we're thinking is the market is in keeping with the market.
Yeah. I think that that's possibly something that could be raised down the track, probably in committee, because it involves estimates of our potential valuations. That's where my concern sat. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, my question is just around Arno's comment when he mentioned horizons and iwi. Does that indicate that we might have other parties that potentially put pressure on this organisation from the outside? We want, but that effectively can get in the way of having a really well managed project that gives the right outcomes at the far end. Is that what you were inferring?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I think partly, but mostly what happens, as an example, is we would have agreement with Horizons as to a timeline and a program. What Horizons would love to see, and the same goes for iwi and any other interested party, is to have a monthly update as to what's going on. So at the moment, a lot of work's being done and we are installing the pipeline and there's a lot of progress, but without a specific resource managing all of that, all of these interested parties are out of the loop. And the same goes for the people that are doing the process engineering compared to the people doing the geological investigations and the consenting. All of that, again, we need that kind of umbrella resource to be sure that everybody's aware of all the bits. So for us as a PMO, we just don't have enough hours in the week to do all of that. And we identify that as an area that we can improve on massively, and that's the negotiation with low environmental.
Thank you.
Question for me, Your Worship, if I may, through to Arno. In your verbal update you just gave, then you made the comment that the recommendation was not to buy land at this time. Does that indicate, maybe I've read that wrong, but does that indicate to me that there is an alternative or something else, engineering, that may be an outcome from engaging these people? Or are they just saying that the land is going to need to be bought at some stage but not now? Or is it the size of the land is going to be less, or the distribution to land, or distribution to land may or may not be required?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may, it's exactly what you're saying. What we want to do is employ good engineering and make good informed decisions and be sure that whatever we're doing, that is the most cost-effective way to achieve the outcomes that we want. And that is exactly what you're talking about. How much land do we need? How often will we discharge? Is it all the time? Is it some of the time? Is it none of the time? What does that look like? And what does the numbers look like behind it? So what we're doing at the moment, we kind of trying to be opportunistic. So if it comes along, let's have a good look at it. If the land is suitable for whatever we want, let's purchase it, because if this land will only increase in value. If we get 3 years down the line and we only need half of it or some of it, we can always sell the rest. So there's no real risk for the organisation in procuring land if it becomes available. If it's more organised, we can do better engineering behind the scenes, get a firmer grasp on those numbers and the efficiencies that we can show to the organisation, and then purchase the land that we actually need. So it's a bit of a mixture of the two.
I wonder if councillors, if we are talking around something that probably needs an area of discussion to a subsequent item or workshop situation update. Is that where you see it, Mr. Chief Executive?
Yeah. Yes.
Actually, given your comment, Your Worship, I'm going to not ask the question I was going to ask. I'd rather that it happened in a forum like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's appropriate. Any further questions around this item? Otherwise, Jess, I'll get you to move on. No, please go for it.
Thank you. The next project is the Lake Waipu Improvements and Ratana Wastewater Treatment Project. Are there any questions or comments?
Not from me. No, move on.
Okay. The next project is the Bulls Bus Lane in Town Square, another one that's in construction at the moment. Any questions or comments?
Just closing date, opening date, etc.
The completion of construction is expected on the 4th of March, and we are currently planning an opening ceremony for the bus lane component, depending on COVID and the finalisation of construction timing. We'd like to note that we intend to do a separate opening for the town square later, as the artwork is not likely to be ready by the 4th of March. So we would do a separate one when that's in place to open the town square.
I'm presuming that we're liaising around dates with the bus companies.
Yes, yeah.
Any further questions? No, we'll move on.
The next item is the Memorial Park redevelopment in Taihape. That's the amenities building and options investigation for the grandstand. I'm happy to take any questions or comments on this one.
I guess the only question from me, one around cost. So we've got a green line in there. We've awarded contracts, but we have a price escalation sub-clause of that contract. Should that indicate that we put an amber line in there? Because cost of materials is probably question to you.
If I may.
Whichever you go for it.
Should I answer for that one? So we are still working. We had our first meeting yesterday, or another meeting with our construction company and the engineers, and they are still, even while we are in the process of starting the construction, they still are looking for ways to make sure that we are saving money and not spending extra. So there's a definite focus on the project that we're not going outside of anything that was discussed.
With the waiting time for things like steel, etc., do we pre-order or?
Yeah, they're already in the process of, they ordered already the very long lead items, and they're already talking to everyone to make sure that everything that could be an issue is actually being directly seen and ordered and paid for. So the construction start date is currently planned for the 7th of March, which had, the reason for that was, again, a slight delay in delivery lead times, and in our opinion, it didn't make sense to start off with something and then have a break in the middle while we're waiting for some of the steel and some of the timber to come actually in. So 7th of March is the date when they feel really comfortable that they can start and continue the whole
and do the job effectively. Yeah. Thank you. Just one other question from me, then I'll go to Councillor Duncan. Can you talk to us around where we are in terms of the iwi involvement? I understand you have met with them.
So we reached out over the last year to them, to local iwi a few times, and had two really good in-person meetings with them. We had good conversations around their feelings towards this project and their stand around it. And the conclusion of it was that they feel not as comfortable in supporting the project at this point as in being part of a blessing ceremony or something like that. And I can understand their reasoning. There's obviously some opinions as well in the community that may be a little bit against this project. And what I've taken away from it is that we actually need to improve some of our communication around both the projects of the grandstand and the amenities building. And in the next week, we will start rolling out some communication to the community, to everyone, so that they understand where both of the projects are at. And I left the door open as well with iwi to make sure that if they wanted to get on board with the blessing ceremony or turning the soil ceremony, how we're calling it now,
then that the door is always open, that I'm happy to make arrangements to include it. And there's also a conversation around potentially adding story to the building even once it's open. So at the moment we were thinking to keep the rooms possibly very generic, with numbers, but this can be then changed to include stories of the locals and bring a bit of identity into the building. But we always were planning to do that in a way that you can add later. So, for example, decals on the walls or something like that. That is quite simple, but it has big impact on the building itself.
A couple of subsequent questions to this. First of all, both iwi and you are happy that we're engaging with the right iwi, so there's no issues there. Yes. And so reading between the lines, some of the sensitivity is around mixed community views as to the appropriateness of building something that we've gone out for consultation with, etc. So it's okay. I think that explains it to me. Thank you for that. Councillor Duncan, I think I had you next.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to know how our consultation will also extend to groups such as the Taihape tennis groups that are using the facility, because that fencing off and making that site safe will impact quite a lot on their use of those tennis courts.
Yes, so I always have been in touch with Sarah Bell from the tennis group, and I intend to keep her updated on when exactly and how far it all will be fenced off. So when we are doing the ceremony on the 18th in the morning, we also will meet with the construction company and the engineers at the same time and just go through the whole process of what they're planning the site establishment will look like, so that it will be quite clear of how access will be granted to the whole park and if there's any obstructions like that, and that will be communicated then to all the groups that want that information.
Thank you. Subsequent question, was that just thumbs up? Thumbs up. Councillor Hira, Tracy, we rely heavily on your expertise within this. Do you have any concerns or anything that you wish to raise?
No, I don't. It's been a lot. No, I don't necessarily have anything to put into this. But in saying that, it's been a long running. I feel like it's about 12 or 15 years ago. It's been a long running discussion with council and the Taihape community around what could happen down at the developments that could happen down at the Taihape Rec. And just an observation and point of view from me is that I suppose with in my head we've got to go ahead in what we're doing. Otherwise, we will be in another 12 years still in exactly the same place. So as much as iwi may not be necessarily on board, I think they're taking into some of the consultation that would have happened prior to the existing councillors and even the existing staff that are here now. I think there has been communication hasn't been one of the best things that have been out there, but I don't think that we're not stopping, and as Adina has said, there's opportunity in future for iwi and potentially any other group that's out there to have some input into things. So I just, in my head, it's like, yeah, you just keep going. I don't think there's it's pointless to be stopping. I know that nobody's saying that, but I just want to mihi and just say, let's keep the wheels rolling. And yeah, iwi might be having an opinion about things, but as Adina has said, it's not the end of the story.
Thank you. I'll go to council. A number of people who wish to have their view with regard to this, and so I'll go Councillor Wilson, Arno, and Councillor Gordon. Was it you?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and very quickly in the interest of time, I think there's just a little bit of a risk here that this is starting to morph into one project. This is two very separate projects with different funding lines, and different costing streams and different requirements for each. We're now referring this to the Taihape Memorial Park redevelopment, subtitles, amenity build, grandstand investigation. These are two very separate things. And I think we should just be a little bit careful about how we're reporting on these things. Whilst we have a shared contractor doing the job, I understand. These are two quite separate projects. They've had completely separate decision-making processes leading up to them, and I don't think that these should become one in its entirety, because even when we come down to engagement and things like that, whilst it's with the community as a whole, there are different groups within that. I think these should be distanced apart a wee bit and kept a little bit more separate than what they are starting to appear in the reporting of this paper.
Very sage advice from the Chair of Assets. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. That was my feelings as well.
Take that as an action, Your Worship.
And the Chief Executive taking that on board, the real degree of separation between the two parts of this project. Arno.
Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity. I think just because of the interest in this project, just two things that's really important. The first is, out of lessons learned from the Bulls building, what we've done this time, thanks to the PMO and Adina specifically, is we went to the building consent office and said to them, let's work together as a team. Let's not outsource this building consents. Let's do it all in-house together between the PMO and the BCO, which we did. The process went through real quick. The amount of questions that came back were limited and very prudent, and we got the building consent. The positive out of this is it's a team effort. Everybody understands the plans really well before we move into construction. So just on the lessons learned from Bulls, that was a big improvement, and credit to Adina and the PMO team. Secondly, I've promised that I would make you all aware that in this environment of COVID and the rest, expect delays on this project. Expect delays. Do not be surprised if we do come back and say there is an extension of time application, and also that there will be challenges on costs. So the PMO will manage that as well as we possibly can, but we have to accept that this one might be quite challenging, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention early on.
Yeah, hence my comment at the start of the meeting around the section around whether that cost should be moved to amber, because it is likely to be an issue. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Look, from Adina's verbal update, it almost sounds as if the process that we went through around the naming of the pavilion and naming of rooms has been vetoed. Am I correct in that interpretation?
If I can answer on that. The name of the building itself has been endorsed by council and by the community board, and therefore that has not been touched. The iwi is actually quite happy with that name.
Cool.
They endorse it. It's more about the complexity actually of finding the names for the rooms. Like as an example, they mentioned to me that maybe they don't feel comfortable having mana whenua over certain rivers that we suggested as examples. So I think with that in mind, I just don't want to overstep the boundaries there, that it goes into something that I'm trying to tell them to do. I actually want the buy-in and want to see what stories they want to include, and that can develop. So the name of the building itself has not been discussed in that area, so that still stands endorsed by you and the community board. But
we've just got to make sure that any comment here aligns with council decisions that have already been put forward. Council can revisit stuff, certainly, but just bear in mind, I just need to check where we were at. I think because we accepted a series of names in this space, and so that's effectively become a council decision at that stage. That's my memory from this process. So look, I think just leave that to do some checking around that. Councillor Duncan, and then unless there's something substantive with regard to this that can't be raised with staff, I'll move on. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I'd just like to say that I both agree and disagree with Councillor Wilson regarding the reporting around the amenities build. I think it's actually for us, ourselves, and within the financial statements, etc., the way that's put, I agree that there needs to be a separation, or at least an understanding of where the separation lies. But as far as consultation and communication with the community, I think it's been really very helpful that we have this redevelopment as together for the park and the understanding for the Taihape people, because as we've all said, this has been very long running, and there are definitely people on both sides of that fence. And for them to see that their development is not instead of, but as well as the other development, that's actually been very, very helpful on a local level. And people then go, okay, we're getting what we want. We're happy for the other project to go ahead as well. And it's taken some heat locally, and this is my experience in the community. So I would just like to put that forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion with regard to that.
Councillor Hira raised hand.
Councillor Hira.
Thank you. I just picked up on something, Adina, that you talked about in regards to Ngāti Tama not necessarily being comfortable with talking about the names of those other iwi. I'm happy to have to give you my thoughts around that, Adina, okay, as to how we could work through with that. I've got some suggestions.
If there's suggestions, perhaps that's an in-house conversation between the two of you. Would that be more appropriate?
Yes.
Thanks. Councillors, we've now been going for a couple of hours. Understanding orders, we need to take a break.
Another 5 minutes, Your Worship.
In another 5 minutes. I've got clock watches all over the place, I think. Jess, if we've got another couple of minutes, can you move on, or do you wish us to stop now?
I can at least get through one more project before we stop, if not two.
I'd appreciate that.
So the next project is the Martin Industrial Park and Rail Hub. Are there any questions on this one?
No, just other than there hasn't been a board meeting of the Rail Hub board for some time. When do you envisage the next board meeting? And I certainly acknowledge the Christmas break, etc. But where are we at with that?
It's sitting with me to organise one in January for February.
Thank you. Any further questions? There'll be a series of updates to councillors that presumably come out of those processes. Okay, we'll move on.
The next project is the Madden Water Strategy, the sub-project A, which is the new bore. It is sitting with the Assets and Infrastructure Division to make a decision on the recommendation from Stantec about proceeding to an exploratory bore. We expect to make that decision next week.
Thank you. The only question from me, are we currently pumping water from the existing bore to the dams?
Your Worship, if I may answer that, yes, we are. Yep.
I thought I could hear it as I walk around the dams.
Yes. One quick question for me, through you, Your Worship, to Arno, and possibly to Jess. The report seeks approval to target zone of 400 metres below ground. Was that the original thinking in your costings when this was produced, that we would be going to 400 metres?
Through you, Your Worship, no, interestingly enough, we thought it would be more in line with the Tutanui bore, which is about 150, 160 odd metres. And this is part of the discussion with Stantec on early next week as to how it all fits together and what it means and why is it deep.
Significant difference.
Yes, significant.
That was exactly my question. Where does the Tutanui bore sit compared to what they're requesting? So you answered that. Thank you.
Maybe we'll get warmer water if we go down that deep.
Might be more gold in it.
Right. We'll move on.
The next project is the Regional Treatment Plant Consenting Program. Happy to take any questions. For now, it's running on track.
You'll be pleased to know there are no questions from me. No, move on.
Councillor Duncan.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Duncan.
Just for me, I mean, these water, all of these projects, of course, are going to come under scrutiny again with the RMA changes. So we just business as usual, are we? And we're looking at those changes being further down the track where it's not actually going to cause any hold-ups or changes too much.
Arno might wish to comment.
Yes, so through you, Your Worship, that is correct, Councillor. For the time being, we'll continue as business as usual. We have partnered up with WSP, who would be on top of all the changes, I think more than any of us, and we have complete confidence that they would inform us as we go along as to how we need to adjust.
I guess, Councillor, it's also fair to say that all of these projects will come under some scrutiny in terms of levels of service and what we can and can't do according to the finances, and a clear understanding of where we'll be with regard to such things as the removal of 3 waters from council's financial position. You know, if you take about $10 million worth of income out of your budgets, we need to understand that, and it also takes a substantial amount of cost as well. So we've got a whole series of processes. If we're looking at some very significant capital improvement, capital cost escalation, all of those things will be up to council to scrutinise. So it won't be just consenting, it'll be all sorts of things. Councillor Dalgety.
I've got a couple of questions. I'm just interested around the Martin Civic Centre. There has been some previous designs done on that project. What is the role of those? In the current process, or are they ignored?
I can answer that if you would like. They're part of the Better Business case that we're doing as part of the option engineering. So the outcome of the business case, once it is finalized, will have lots of analysis, but it will include the options which includes the building down there that is a refit of a building, or various other options as per the plan. So it forms part of the business case, and then that will be put to council, and then council can advise us on how we should continue on consultation with which options.
Okay, thank you.
The councillor mentioned she had a couple of questions.
Yeah. My other question, or my other comment, is around item 5 in the Hunterville Town Hall. I am chair of the Hunterville Sport and Recreation Trust. My suggestion is that this inquiry came from the Hunterville Community Board, not our trust.
Community committee.
Yeah.
Community committee, yes, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's true.
Yeah, so just seek a little bit of amendment in there, and it potentially separates out a conflict of interest. So yeah, that is important. So we've obviously moved into the miscellaneous items. I do want to try and tidy up all this before we break.
Okay.
So, councillors, anything further under miscellaneous? Councillor Gordon.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Item 6, Your Worship, Papakite Pump Station. The increase in cost is a little bit breathtaking here. Could staff fill us in on what's changed from just the cost of materials?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Bishop. Yeah, absolutely. This is the interesting part of this whole discussion. So our original scope was to build a pump station to avoid spills into the Untitled River in the future. That's what that will cost. If we want to change that because of the cost and take on more risk, our normal design level of service is much lower than that. That is a question that I would put to council to see what is your appetite for cost compared to risk and where that sits. If we want to build something that will reduce that risk to almost zero, that will be the cost.
There are several issues that arise from that. First of all, the original estimates were based on partially on that discussion, and at the time the discussion was around exactly the point that you're raising, that you can build something that is 100% foolproof or as near to it as you can get, and the sky's the limit. On that basis, we put in a budget figure of around 1.5. What has substantially changed since that discussion in a budget approval line?
It's a good question. The budget was placed in the 10-year plan before we had the prosecution. So when we put the budget in, it was for a standard off-the-shelf pump station like any other one, and that's the expected cost for that. We then went through the prosecution for the spill from the into the Untitled River, and on top of that, at the back end of that, the level of service increased substantially, and that is the price difference.
So presumably a report will come back to council around detailed design, the levels of service that we could determine and how that reflects to that detailed design, and where this would be funded from. Because effectively you're suggesting that we could have an LTP figure approved at 1.5 million, moving to 5 million. So we would need very clear understanding as to how that would be funded. Councillor Gordon.
I think in a big picture sense, this project displays what can happen in terms of current level of service and, I wouldn't say the sky's the limit, but a different level of service and how we get there, because we've got a whole heap of projects going that if we apply this, these sort of boundaries to, we can have monstrous capital blowouts. You know, we could end up with a humongous pile of debt at the end of the next 3 years, etc. And so I think really from a governance perspective, we possibly need a mechanism that just steps us through it, and it would be good if we had a generic mechanism that went across everything, all projects, that said, here's current level of service, and if we ratchet it up 1 step or 2 steps, here are the costs, here are the implications, and it needs to be really, really transparent, so that we don't get surprises. Now, you know, I was horrified when I saw that figure, but I think your explanation is slowly teasing out the why. But we've got so many projects on, or potentially going to start, that this could happen to all of them, and that's a scary space.
Well, there's another overlap here, and that is around Entity B and the Three Waters. On one hand, you may well end up with a discussion to say you are better off starting these projects, which under current legislation provision would move to Entity B, and you get your foot in the door first, and you get a level of service that somebody else is going to provide. A number of other councils would take the view that why do this now? Leave it to somebody else to worry about. Keep it out of your budget. It's not a particular view that I prescribe to. However, we also don't have a clear understanding in terms of, for instance, Entity B, and Dave may wish to make further comment around this, as to who will fund these things? So as I understand it at the moment, there is nothing to stop any entity, whether it's B, C or whatever, of putting in place a local funding regime to support the local infrastructure rather than one that is standardised against the entity. So this model was originally built on the concept of cross-subsidisation right across an entity. But as I understand it currently, there is nothing to stipulate that that actually has to happen by law. So you can go out and say that you want the gold-plated revenue on the assumption that it will be funded by Hamilton and whoever. My belief is we're not quite understanding that position yet.
If I can, I won't comment in regards specifically to the Three Waters, but I will go back to my time at Auckland Transport. I was effectively the formation CFO of Auckland Transport, and for those who don't know, Auckland in 2010, when it got broken up, there were a number of entities formed, one of which was Watercare, another one was Auckland Transport. So what I'll mention to you is actually our experience in coming in as a new organisation, standing up on the 1st of November it was for us, and looking at a work program that needed to be delivered. Right? And depending on how it goes, a lot of the people who will go into this will come into it on the 1st of July. So they will start cold. In looking at a capital work program, the key things that they're going to be looking to do, and in the mix of it, they're going to have a lot of pressure coming from central government for them to be delivering, right? So what they will be looking for is projects that are what the government termed for the recent subsidy already shovel-ready and underway. If it's not shovel-ready and underway, they will almost be certainly be going back to doing an analysis of time and need. So when you're thinking about your programs in terms of where it will be funded, be thinking about, is it ready to go? If it's not ready to go and it's going to be difficult to deliver, then it will fall away. To give you an idea, the capital work program for Auckland Transport in the first 8 months was 435 million. We spent 300. Right? And so that's going to be an issue right across the board. Stuff that is going, they'll push the effort in behind. Getting stuff going, they'll push the effort in behind to get the spend up, because the government's going to want to see these things continue to go ahead. So they'll have pressure in terms of their mandates to do that. In terms of the cross-subsidy, not knowing how they will set their revenue and so on, but one thing when you look at the scale, and knowing the scale of Auckland Transport and knowing some of the stuff that Watercare does, cross-subsidisation's a little bit of a, it's a red herring, right? Because what does it actually mean? Over time, everything cross-subsidises everything else, right? These organisations will have a big pool of funds, right? An enormous pool of funds available to them. I think Entity B has a turnover of something like 1.4 billion. The debt it will take on in year one will be around about 8 billion. Its funding capacity is going to be up around 7, right? So you're talking big organisations, and in that, and to give you an example, when I was in Wanganui, they were talking about covering the cycle arena. After that, within 2 years of that, I was up in Manukau. When Manukau talked in collaboration with Auckland about putting in a bid for the Commonwealth Games, didn't actually put the bid in the end. In 2 minutes discussion, Manukau decided they would build a new velodrome. Right? Because $20 million was not a thing that Manukau blinked at. It was not an issue for us in terms of our balance sheet. And so in the midst of that, that's what you're going to see with the Three Waters. You're going to see a scale where, without your numbers are small. If they can deliver them and tick them off, they will be looking to deliver and tick off. The cross-subsidisation would be a rounding error. any cross subsidisation in that would be erroneous. They wouldn't take it on board.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to prolong this conversation too long, but there's, obvious discussion, for instance, between a council just north of Auckland and Auckland City, where Auckland City take the view that that why should they be subsidising other council, which will be difficult. They won't effectively pay their way. So there's all sorts of plays out here.
And the analysis actually reveals the opposite is true.
Look, I think we'll break. Councillors, 10 minutes?
Have we received the report?
No, we haven't, and maybe I could do that. Thank you for the advice. Would somebody like to so move the receipt? Thank you, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Wilson. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We'll go offline. We'll come back again in 10 minutes' time. Tell me when we're back online, please.
Now.
Thank you. Welcome back to council meeting of today's date. Moving on to 11.2, spatial plan update. We welcome Ms Gray to the table, as always. And we're in your kind hands.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. What we've got in front of you today is a regular project update to council on the Paitawhiti Rangitike Beyond project, our spatial plan project. I'll largely take the report as read, but do want to highlight a couple of matters. The first one is just to acknowledge Councillor Panapa has withdrawn from the advisory group. It's a shame he's not here, but we do just want to thank him for his contribution to the group. While he was on it, he always came with great ideas and great insights that were valued. So thank you to Councillor Panapa for that. The second one is just to touch on Councillor Dalgiddy's comment around the overlap between the spatial plan engagement and the annual plan engagement. There is a small overlap between the two projects. Our desire is to keep the engagement on those two projects as separate as possible. They are quite distinct projects that we want to keep as separate as possible. But to achieve our timeframes on both projects, there is a slight overlap. And we'll be looking to ensure that the communications that go out during that time reduce confusion on that. The final thing is just to note that we're getting to a really exciting stage of the spatial planning project, which is our first round of community engagement. So that's scheduled for March and April. I do want to highlight that we're going to have to stay really agile to the changing COVID-19 situation, and we'll be adapting as we need to. So any sort of community engagements that go ahead in person will be following COVID-19 guidelines, etc., etc. And we may have to pivot quickly depending on what the environment's like at the time. There is a council workshop scheduled in February where I will take you through more comprehensively what's proposed in terms of the discussion document that will be the base of that engagement and the proposed engagement itself. So I'll give you more detail at that time, and do expect a report from me for your end of February meeting, requesting approval to go out for community consultation on the project. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Belsham.
Thank you, and thank you, Katrina. Just a question around the task completed during December and January, and there was advisory group numbers 5 and 6, the business environments, business land assessment. Did that involve any business input from within the district?
Through you, Your Worship. No, that's simply a technical assessment. So what we've had is we've had a company called Market Economics do an assessment of potential future needs. They base it on an economic futures model. So they have a model that they input all the data to that predicts an economic future, and we base it on that. What we can do is we can look as a council around what the outcomes of that may be and how any local knowledge might need to, influence what we do in that space. We've run a few different scenarios. The intention is to have that document as a supporting document for our engagement.
So there'll still be the ability for businesses to input into this process further down the track. Right?
Certainly, we do want to have good engagement with the business community, particularly through the engagement period. Yeah. So that's simply a technical report to help guide us on understand what the future land use might be in the district based on that economic futures model. And then we can assess what we get back from businesses on that.
Anything further? Would somebody like to move that the report be received? Councillor Gordon, Councillor Belsham. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing in that space, or that spatial space. Moving on to late items, 12.1, the energy contract renewal. There's a recommendation that sits in front of us. As said previously, and can the minutes reflect, note that I have accepted this item under urgency on the basis that the information wasn't available prior to going out, the agenda's going out. So that recommendation one, that the late item be dealt with as part of the agenda, etc., I will move that that be recorded. Councillor Wilson seconded. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Would somebody like to move the receipt of the report? Councillor Belsham, Councillor Wilson. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Recommendation 3, that the Chief Executive be authorised to review and enter into contracts for our electricity supplier. Would somebody like to move that so it's up for discussion? Councillor Belsham moving, Councillor Wilson seconding. Do you wish to, you're the mover, do you wish to speak to this?
Look, this is required to obviously move under urgency with the situation we've found ourselves in. So, and it's an unfortunate situation that we've found ourselves in, but I guess we need to put the power in the correct hands to make that decision and review what tender processes or what prices are put in front of us with some urgency. So, yeah, I don't see any other option.
I'll speak to that. I'll reinforce your comments. The reason this is in front of you, councillors, is because it sits with outside of delegation limits. We literally can't operate without the lights being turned on. So it's, in my mind, it's that simple. So I'll support the motion.
I do wonder, Your Worship, if I may, that the motion as it reads doesn't actually talk about my delegated authority, and I wonder if it should state in excess of my delegated authority.
I thought about that. I don't think it really needs it. If you wish it to be put in as a comment alongside it, then I'm happy for it to be, but I'm not sure that it's a requirement from my position. Up to you.
Your Worship, I'd be actually happy to put a note onto that recommendation as stated in the report, but not as part of the recommendation, noting that this would be over the $250,000 delegation, just so that it's recorded there.
Okay. Is the seconder happy with that?
Happy, Your Worship.
All right. Can we just wait till we're going to... Can you...
Sorry, just to clarify, is that part of the recommendation? Or
Yes. It'd be just noting. Councillor Duncan, a question?
Just a bit of a nitpick, really. The final paragraph of that report is a little bit confusing if you're going to be picking up on the fact that the delegated authority and the authorisation, because the delegated authority isn't enough to go over the 250,000. That last paragraph says, therefore, it is recommended that the Chief Executive be delegated authority. So perhaps that should be authorised to review the contracts, because it's not his delegated authority.
Authorises in the recommendation.
Authorised in the recommendation, that's the report.
Yeah. Up to you, it's your motion. You're happy?
Yeah.
Seconder happy? Yeah. I guess if the mover and seconder are happy, I'm okay with who they're at, councillor. Okay, thank you. Need to put it to the vote.
Question for me. What is the normal process for identifying contracts that are coming to an end? It seems a little bit caught on the hop. It's sat in someone's camp somewhere.
I agree.
Yeah.
And we have struck this before. So I think I don't see this as a specific action back to the Chief Executive, but I'm sure the Chief Executive will have noted your concern. That fair comment?
Yes. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think that has been already picked up, to be honest. Right, are you happy if I put it to the vote, councillors? Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Minutes from the committees. I'm hoping that somebody moves them as a block, that the recommendation are received as a block. Councillor Wilson moving, looking for somebody online to second. Thank you, the top of Tracy. Councillor do you wish to speak to it?
No, Your Worship.
The vote, those in favour? Those against? Carried. We don't have any recommendations from those. So we'll move into item 15. This is the resolution to exclude the public in terms of public excluded. Rather than me read through all the reason, is somebody happy to so move? Councillor Wilson moving, Councillor Dalgety seconding. Those in favour? Aye. Thank you. I thank those people online, and we'll move to public excluded. We'll take a minute break while you reorganise in terms of your big tin cans.